Hello and welcome back. We have week one breakdown. Here we go. Before we get rolling, hopefully everyone had a good kind of week zero taste, a little splash of the games last week. We have had a pretty good Thursday night slate. I'm recording this here early Friday morning. Colorado, man, they are going to be in just roller coaster games all year because they can't stop anyone. But North Dakota State gave them a little bit of a fight there. Had some other good games, a lot of blowouts on Thursday night as expected. So hopefully you all had some fun playing a little bit of that shorter slate on DraftKings. But we are here to talk about the main big dog slate, the first one of the year coming out here. I think we have, 12 games, something like that. So let's rock and roll. Let's win some money. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please subscribe. I know that's boring to hear like every other show, but hit the thumbs up, hit subscribe if you haven't done that already. As always, helps a ton and helps us, obviously continue doing this for free. So let's dive in here. Like I mentioned, we have the games coming up on Saturday, prime time. Let me go ahead and actually just pull these games up. We have Clemson at Georgia right off the bat, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern. Georgia is almost a 2-touchdown favorite. I think it's about 13.5 right now. Virginia Tech and Vanderbilt, which should be a pretty interesting game here. We'll talk about that one. Penn State at West Virginia, another awesome game on this DraftKings main slate. Kent State at Pitt. We've got UConn and Maryland squaring off. South Dakota State takes on Oklahoma State, which I was a little bit surprised to see this spread. I think it's about 9.5. I was expecting it to be a little bit bigger than that, but we'll talk about it. Colorado State takes on Texas. Miami and Florida get it on down in the swamp. We've got Akron is going to be a legit 60-person human sacrifice to Ohio State. Miami of Ohio takes on Northwestern, which we can pretty much cross out from a DFS standpoint. Ohio and Syracuse, UTEP, and Nebraska. So let's rock and roll. Let's dive into it. So I think we, in the early weeks and a lot of these teams, it's obviously game one for them. It's going to be a challenge. I would suggest playing a little bit lighter unless you feel super confident about specific spots, mainly because we don't really know some of these depth charts, right? We don't know the rotations. If you've done any homework on the slate or any of these teams like I have, you'll notice that these depth charts, there's a lot of or on there, which means you don't know what they're going to do. You could see a lot of teams even starting, more of the senior in situations, but the freshman or sophomore is actually going to be the one who gets more run. So it's really tough to kind of project out players. We have some teams that are willing to talk about things more. You've got other teams that won't tell you a thing. So I think you got to take everything a little bit with a grain of salt. Just do not be upset or, totally defeated here. If you go ahead and play a player, or you think, especially if you're going to try to take a shot on a sneaky guy, and that person puts up a goose egg or 2 points or something like that, we just don't know what we don't know. And we will flush all that out as we get more data and more information and the season goes on. But I'm going to do my best here to kind of give you what I have found through my research and who some of the guys that I like going into Saturday are. All right. So right off the bat, we've got Clemson and Georgia. I think this is going to be an amazing football game. I think it's going to be a little bit challenging from a DFS perspective. I think Cade Klubnik is a pretty good quarterback, and I expect him to have a good year. He's going against Georgia's defense, which is not usually very fruitful for opposing teams. But I do think there's some value here on the Clemson side. I think Phil Maffa taking over the bell cow back here with Will Shipley finally gone. 5,600 is not a horrible price. Let me hit a little timeout real quick too. I don't have ownership yet on some of these guys. Follow me on the X machine or Twitter, as they used to call it. As I get ownership, will start posting and talking about it. Also, if you're looking for more just kind of very transparent and clear-cut information, in the description here, sign up for the Discord or jump into our Discord here at Red Zone Sports. totally free. We do not have a site. We don't have a paid subscription, anything like that. It's just a bunch of us in there talking ball, talking plays, talking bets. And in there, I will be posting ownership as well. So if you're looking for that, please subscribe or jump into our Discord or follow me on the X. Like I said, we don't have ownership quite yet, but my point was going to be, if these Clemson guys are going to be like sub 5% owned, I'll take some shots on these guys. Mainly Phil Maffa, 5,600. Tyler Brown, 4,300. That's just way too cheap. Antonio Williams is priced up a little bit at 5,700, but you've got also Adam Randall listed as a starting receiver at 3,400. So Brown and Randall, I have a little interest in. I probably won't play Klubnik in this situation. Just when you look at price and everything else, it's just a really tough matchup, and I just like better players on the slate. On the other side, man, it's going to be tough. Carson Beck, 9,100. I think he's playable just because he's in a situation where, we know George is going to have some success. I actually think Clemson has a pretty good run defense going into this season, so they're going to have to throw it a little bit. The challenge is like, who is he going to throw it to, right? Dylan Bell, Colby Young, Dominic Lovett. I think all those guys are okay plays, but I just like both defenses in this game. So, and because George is priced up a little bit, I think it makes it challenging. The biggest question in this game is obviously Trevor Etienne. Is he going to play? He's not. He's not only got the DUI issue, I think he's also recovering from an injury. So who knows if Kirby's going to set him for a quarter, if he's going to sit him the whole game. Nobody really knows, to be totally honest with you. So 7,200 to pay for a dice roll. I mean, I think that's just too much, especially week one. If you get word that Trevor Etienne is not going to play, Branson Robinson becomes almost a must play. He's down in the 4K range. He's just too good a value and behind this offensive line. So keep an eye on that. He's 4,800. Just keep an eye on it, like I said. That's kind of my take on this Clemson-Georgia game. Again, I think the value comes on the Clemson side of the ball with Maffa, Brown, and Randall. If you want to play Beck or like a Dylan Bell or Colby Young or something like that, you can do that on the Georgia side. But I think this game's going to be fairly slow, and I think this game goes under for sure. Moving on to the next one. This one is going to be fairly popular, guys. Virginia Tech is going to get a lot of steam here, in my opinion. Again, I don't have true ownership yet, but I do not envision these guys are going to be low owned. Kylan Drones sitting there around 8,300. I think he's a fantastic play. It's one of my favorite plays on the slate. You've got Tootin at running back. He is sitting there at 6,500. And then you've got three good pass catching options that are all very reasonably priced. Quan Felton at 6,700, Jennings 56, and Lane at 58. All those guys are in play for me this weekend. Moving on to the Vanderbilt side of the ball. Look, they're going to rotate at the quarterback position, which stinks because I was really looking forward to playing Pavia as kind of a low-owned play, but he is not going to – well, I shouldn't say. He is listed as that or on the depth chart going into this game. So he's going to rotate. Who knows what's going to happen? He can play 90% or he could play 50. I'm just not going to mess with it. But I do think Alexander at running back, 5,300 is a decent option. And then you've got receivers Skinner and Fuonji at 3,800, the transfer from Nebraska. Those guys are both in play as well. Moving on to the next game, Penn State, West Virginia. Drew Aller, 8,700's got a new signal caller there in Happy Valley, but this is going to be a tough matchup down against West Virginia. I am taking Penn State in this one, and I'm giving the points. I think they go in there. I think it's tough early on, and we see a close one in the first half, but I think Penn State settles down and takes this one over. I think Aller 8,700's a little expensive. If you are going to look at it from kind of the pricing category, like 8K and above, I think he's expensive. I do think there is a path here for him to have a pretty good game. Singleton at 6,300 is a decent price tag for him. He is going to rotate with Keyshawn Allen. Be a little bit wary of that, but I like Aller because I do really like the fact that Julian Fleming has transferred over. 6K, good price tag for him. I love that he's got just kind of a clear-cut number one option. I think we see in the second year, Aller kind of takes the next step. So I have a little bit of interest on the Penn State side here. I also have interest in Garrett Green. How could you not? I know Penn State's got a fantastic defense, but Garrett Green's awesome, man. I love playing that guy. He made me quite a bit of money last year. 8,100 is a good price tag for him. The running back situation's a little bit convoluted, if you want to say. Jaheim White is there, as well as C.J. Donaldson. Everyone's really down on C.J. Donaldson. He's priced way down. I think these guys are going to kind of split carries, to be honest with you. We don't really know what's going to happen here. This is one of those situations you're kind of rolling the dice and hoping for the best. I know White started to get more touches towards the end of last year, but I do think Donaldson's going to be in the mix at 4,800. He's not a bad play, in my opinion. In the passing game, they don't have really like a clear-cut number one. I think you've got Bray, Fox, and Clement all there, 5,400, 4,700, and 4,400. If you're going to play Green, you can just play him by himself, or you can stack him up with any of those three guys listed as starters on the depth chart. Moving on to Kent State at Pitt. Pitt is like a 24-point favorite here. They actually dropped a pretty surprising depth chart, an announcement yesterday that Holston at 5,400 is going to be the starting quarterback here. And you've got Reed at 4,600 at running back. Both those guys are going to start. Mumpfield, their number one option, returning from last year. It looks like, he was the number two last year, but he's now the number one, 4,800. Man, Pitt has a pretty cheap stack going here, 5,400, 46, 48. You've also got Kenny Johnson at 3,900 and Raphael Williams at 38. All those guys are in play. As a 24-point favorite at home, that might be kind of an interesting spot here, depending on ownership. On the Kent State side of things, you've got Cargman, who's going to start 5,800. Kai Thomas at 5K in the backfield. I think both of those guys are okay. Christian McRae is their best option at 6,100. And you've got Etheridge at 4,500 that I think is doable. UConn versus Maryland. UConn, another cheap stack here. Obviously, it's UConn. But if you want to get different, you want to get weird, you want to play some of these chalky guys, which we'll get to. I think Evers, 4,800. If you want to go bottom of the barrel quarterback pricing, 4,800 for a starting quarterback is there. Edwards at 5,400 should get the majority of touches in the backfield. And then Skylar Bell at 3,800 and TJ Sheffield at 4,400 are the top pass catching options for UConn. Maryland, Edwards at 7K is going to get the start, it looks like, at quarterback. Keep an eye on that one. That one I'm not 100% confident in. Please don't lock button and then come after me and say that I steered you wrong. But 7K looks like he's going to get the start. I think Roman Hemby's a really good play on the slate, 6K. And then a pass catching option, super cheap for Maryland. You've got Prather at 49, Felton at 4,800, and then Smith at 4,100. So another really cheap stacking option here in this game if you want to get weird. South Dakota State, I don't have any information on at this time. I apologize. But Oklahoma State, you've got Alan Bowman at 7K. I think you can do worse than that, to be totally honest with you. I think it's a position potentially where, you could see Oklahoma State throw the ball around a little bit. Ollie Gordon, 9,100. Damn, super expensive, but many considers the best player, or at least best non-quarterback in the country. I get it. I really do. But to pay off that 9,100, you need a big game from Ollie Gordon. Will they need to give him the ball that much in this one, or do you envision him hit ceiling at, 30 plus DraftKings points in this one? Yeah, I don't know. But if you don't play him and he goes for 40, again, it's going to kind of come down to ownership, I think, a little bit, and how I decide to play this one with Ollie. But we'll see. Rashad Owens, 5,200, very good option in the passing game, in my opinion. You've got Brennan Presley priced up at 6,800 and Dejon Stribling at 4,800. I think all three of them are in play, especially if you're going to go with Bowman. On the Colorado State to Texas side of things, Horton is the only one on Colorado State that I have interest in. We've seen that guy pretty matchup proof over the years. It doesn't really matter who he's playing. He is the number one target and option in that offense. And in a game script where they should be trailing, I could see at 6,900 him kind of getting loose and putting up a good game here. On the Texas side, look, Texas and Ohio State are going to be very similar here. So I'll just kind of loop these guys in and I'll talk about it broadly, but just the same thing goes through Ohio State when we get to them. You've got the quarterback at Quinn Ewers, 8,900. I think the challenge with Texas is early on, they have such a good roster, especially at the skill position. It's going to be a kind of like a free-for-all on who's the one who gets there. For example, there's 4, 5, 6 receivers for Texas that could very much get the, multiple touchdowns tomorrow. I don't really know which one to go with. If you're going to play Quinn Ewers and you just love Quinn Ewers in this one, play Ewers and just mix and match the receivers that you're going to play him with. Or you could just play Ewers by himself and hope that he throws a touchdown to each and every guy and throws 6 of them and you're good. But it's just kind of a hard situation to kind of stack up, I should say. You've got Jaden Blue, 6,200. He's going to be a very popular running back on tomorrow's slate, but he's a very good price tag as well. So I will most likely have quite a bit of him. From the receivers position, I think Bond, Bolden, and Golden are my 3 favorites. Bond at 6,500, Bolden at 62. And Matthew Golden is the one who's not really being talked about a lot, but this guy was really damn good in Houston. Previously, he transfers to Texas and kind of takes a step up. I know they've got a few freshmen and younger guys that are looking to play and looking to make their mark, but I think Matthew Golden, you're going to see kind of rise up a little bit. I just think he's a really good football player. So that's why I took a lot in best ball, and that's what I'm taking here, and then to take some shots on. Hopefully ownership reflects that he'll be the lowest owned as well, and I'll be happy with that. Moving on down, we've got Miami at Florida. This one should be another really good game, and it should be about 1 trillion degrees down in the swamp. On the Florida side of things, I have some interest on both sides. So Graham Mertz is 7,500. I think is a good price. You got Johnson. He should be good and clear to go for tomorrow. Let's see, which Johnson priced at? I think he's like 57 or 5,600. I'd have to go back and check. Don't quote me there, guys. I'm sorry. But I do think Johnson is a good play. You've got Eugene Wilson priced up at 7,100, which is one of the most expensive receivers on the slate, but he is damn good. So 7,100, it's expensive, but if you're going to stack it, you're also not paying top dollar for Graham Mertz. So just think of it that way. Also, I do think Elijah Badger is a good football player and a good play in this one. And then you've got DK, who transferred over from Wisconsin. 3,300 is a super cheap price tag for a guy listed as a starter in this one. So I think all these guys are going to play for Florida. We don't really know what Miami is going to look like defensively. They lost a bunch of guys. I know they've got Ruben Bain and some really good players, but the defensive backfield is where the question marks are. So we'll see. You've got on the Miami side, Cam Ward makes his, debut start here at 9K. Really good player. He runs a little bit as well. So he's priced up, but he's a good player. And a lot of people are thinking in this spread offense, he could do some damage this season. Damian Martinez at 6,900 should get the majority of work here in the backfield. So that's not a bad price tag for him. You've got Restrepo at 67, George at 6K. And then one of my favorites and sneakiest plays on the slate is Samuel Brown at 5,900. Another Houston transfer, just like I talked about with Matthew Golden. This guy put up numbers last year, man. He was a really good football player for them. I'm curious to see ownership when it comes out, because if most people are going to Restrepo or, some of these bigger name guys and returners, I will happily take a shot on guys like Samuel Brown and then for Texas, Golden. So I think those are 2 sneaky plays there. That's kind of my interest in the Florida and Miami game. Akron at Ohio State. Well, I'm not playing anyone for Akron. They have an expected team total of 3 points. And I think you're going to see Ohio State looking to make some history this season with their team. So what I mean by that is, even if they're up 45-0, I think they're aiming for shutouts here. So I will not be playing any Akron is what I'm trying to say. Moving to Ohio State, Will Howard, 8,500. He should get loose in this one and have a pretty damn good game. Like I mentioned, and I was talking about with Texas, even more so with Ohio State in this one, because you've got 2 good running backs. You better get it right if you're going to pay some of these price tags and play Ohio State. Will Howard's 8,500, Judkins 75 or 7,900, Henderson 75. You've got Egbuka at 7K. You're paying up in a great situation. Ohio State's going to score a ton of points tomorrow. But is it a situation where Judkins and Henderson each score one, don't hit the 100-yard mark, Egbuka, Tate, and Jeremiah Smith each get a touchdown? I don't know. Will Howard kind of gets there, but not really. Nobody else really gets there fully. It's just a tough situation. I will definitely be taking shots on these guys because if you do get a game where Carnell Tate or Jeremiah Smith or Judkins goes for 3 or 4 touchdowns, which it's going to happen this season, and you land on that correct roulette spin, you're in business. But I need to look at some ownership here. This is going to be, in my opinion, kind of a perfect one where I'm probably not going to be playing the chalk guys on Ohio State because there's so many options and paths for them to score 50 points. Hell, they could score 2-3 defensive touchdowns tomorrow and this thing's over. That's very possible. So just be cautious with Ohio State. They're in an amazing spot. I'm not telling you that because then I'm going to go and just stack up Ohio State left and right. You can do it. I wish you the best of luck if hopefully you get it correct. Miami of Ohio at Northwestern. I was going to cross this game off completely because it looks terrible. But I have a little bit of taste in Keon Mosey. He's 3,800 starting running back. I don't think we're going to need him tomorrow with the value that's on the slate early on. But if you want to play him, go ahead. All right, we got 2 more games to hit on. Ohio at Syracuse. I don't have a ton here for Ohio. Hunt at 4,800 I have a little interest in just because he's cheap. You've got Owen at 55, Hendricks at 5,200, but Bryce Butler is probably the guy that I would look to. He's listed as a starter for Ohio, and he's a $3K flat, so he's min price. If you're looking for a price savings, if you do want to go to Ohio State or something like that and stack them up big, you're going to need a few of these pay down guys. Bryce Butler might be one of those for you. On the Syracuse side, here's where we're going to get to some chalk for sure. Kyle McCord, 8K. I don't know how many people are going to play McCord, but I will if he's low owned. I do think he's out to prove a point, leaving Ohio State after last season. LaQuint Allen, though, at 5,100 is going to be mega chalk. He's just a complete mispricing on tomorrow's slate. He should have a great game. I'll have quite a bit of him. Hatcher at 6,600, I think is a fine play. Haynes at 4,500, I think is a fine play. But Gadsden, the tight end for Syracuse, who's probably their best pass catcher, 3,500, he's going to be massive chalk as well, guys. So LaQuint Allen, Gadsden are just mispricing. They're going to be expensive. UTEP, Nebraska. UTEP's got some guys. Javon Jackson at 4,500, Cam Thomas at 4,900. What sucks is they put Cam Thomas listed as a running back. So, both of those guys are in there. Ashton Nickelberry, sweet name, by the way. He is dead min price, 3K starting receiver for UTEP. So he's another guy along with Butler. If you want to get, if you need a few cheap pass catching options, those guys are in there. And then we go to the other side of the house. We've got Dylan Raiola making his first start. I am going to be playing a decent amount of him. I think this kid is going to show out. I think he is looking to make a mark and make a statement. And I think this is the spot where they could do that at home. They're looking for a reason to get Nebraska fans all fired up out there. I think this is a spot where they're going to let Raiola kind of tee off. So I like this. Jamal Banks at 7,500 is expensive, but he's their number 1 pass catching option. Isaiah Nayor, 5,200. He is a very big, strong, athletic receiver as well. I think he was a transfer from Texas. So he is in play. And then Janarian Bonner at 3,300 is another cheap pass catching option for Nebraska. I think he's starting in the slot or he's listed there. So for me, favorite plays, quick rundown. Cam Ward, 9K. Quinn Ewers, 8,900. In the middle tier, Kyron Jones, 8,300. Raiola, 8,300. And then if I'm paying down, my favorite, it's going to be Alan Bowman there for quarterback. Running backs, it's a tough one, man. But I think if I'm paying up above 6K, it's Jaden Blue and Roman Hemby. In the middle tier, I think I'm leaning to LaQuint Allen. I think he's just a guy who's in a great spot, even though he's going to be chalk. And if I'm paying down, Desmond Reed at 46 and Javon Jackson at 45, I think are my 2 favorites. And then moving to wide receiver, if I'm paying up above 6K, I think it's Jamal Banks and Fleming for me. If I'm looking in the middle tier, Samuel Brown, Jennings at 56, Rashad Owens, and Tyler Brown with and Matthew Golden. There's a lot in here, guys, in the 5Ks, 4Ks. So I know I listed like 5 guys there, but those are my favorites. And then if you're paying down, it's probably Bonner, or you can look to someone, again, if you're trying to get off the chalk of Gadsden, Nickelberry, or Butler. So that's all I got. Week 1. Good luck, everybody. Have some fun. Again, it's early in the season. Don't go through your entire bankroll quite yet. If you have questions or you just want to have fun, talk about bets, talk about DFS, whatever. Again, Discord link is in the comment section. Come on in, join. It's a blast. We have a lot of fun. And hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Till next time, good luck.